Lisa.
Hey Janet, it's always great to get to talk to you. How are things out there in the West?
Well, it's a little smoky. I'm in British Columbia, as you know, in Western Canada, and we're in a state of emergency actually because there's a lot of fires going on and quite a bit of smoke. Hence, my voice is a little weird today, so I'll apologize in advance. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, but believe it or not, despite the fact that we're thousands of miles away from the fires on the West Coast, we're getting the smoke here too. So it's quite scary, and I hope that they can get it under control and get people safe soon.
Yeah, me too. We could use some rain. So, everybody out there, welcome to our fifth video in our series of video chats. In previous chats, we introduced the idea of holistic testing. And I showed this model that had kind of come up with. So we're not going to go over it, but today we're in the seek to understand area. So we talk a little bit discovery and planning, and now we're trying to understand. So in today's talk, we're going to talk about example mapping. Do you want to explain, Lisa?
Well, example mapping is, I think, for both of us, one of our very favorite tools, and building shared understanding up front is so important. And this has been such a great tool that the teams I've been on have found the benefits from. So this is from Matt Wynn. I think I learned it. I think he presented it at
Yes.
Agile 2015.
Quite a long
And
time ago.
yeah, and I took it back and saw that it could apply to the problems my team was having with cycle time and rejection rate, because we really didn't have that shared understanding. So the idea, the way we've practiced it is in our pre-grooming sessions, pre-IPM, Three Amigos, whatever.
I call them story readiness.
Yeah, whatever name you want to give that. We go through each of the stories that we're going to discuss in our next iteration planning meeting or whatever kind of planning meeting that we have. And so for each story, we get together with a product person, tester, developer, and perhaps designer, perhaps a database person, operations person, whoever we need for the stories that we're going to talk about. And the first thing we do is identify the goal of the story. What's the purpose? What's the value to the business and or the customer? Because we want to focus on that value. And then we need to know the business rules. It's usually the product person who can come up with these. And to understand them better, we want to have concrete examples of scenarios of what would a particular user do and what should happen. And as we talk about it, questions are going to come up. And we found that this just usually, because we like to size our stories very small and consistently sized, there are all kind of benefits to that. We find that we can get through a story in 5 or 10 minutes. It doesn't take a lot of time to do this.
Right. If your stories are bigger, then you'll have more business rules, more examples. And that's probably a good indication as well to break your stories up. I find one great way to break up stories is by business rules, actually. Mm-hmm. They work quite well. I know Matt also used very specific colors. Mm-hmm. Yellow for the story, blue for the rules, green for the examples, and red or pink, whatever color you have of index card for the questions. And then it makes it easy to see what it is as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the color coding.
Yeah.
And then lots of benefits come out of this. For example, those examples can be turned into executable tests to help us with behavior-driven development or acceptance test-driven development.
Right.
So just tons of benefits out of this.
All right, let's walk through an example.
All right, we love examples.
We do. So stop sharing that and we'll get on to our example. We want to take an example from real life. I find that real examples actually help. So we're going to use something from our Agile Testing Fellowship website. And this is something that we're actually implementing right now, and hopefully it's in production soon. So we had, one of the things we wanted to do was, we had a training provider, and this came about as so just in time, right? So we're having a instructor that's leaving a training provider. And so our business rules have always, said an instructor has to work for a training provider. So now we're sitting there going, okay, we have a training provider that only had one instructor, but that instructor was leaving. So the goal was that if a training provider has no active licensed instructors, they can't advertise for new courses. And that's really what we were trying to do. So the business rule that we came up with, which is said, if a training provider has no active instructors, they will be deemed inactive. Right. So then the conversation started. What do we mean by inactive? And so that started giving us examples. And so our very first scenario was the real life one, which was an instructor left. So what does that mean? So we don't want them on the training provider page. So an instructor leaves, we don't leave them on a training provider page. We don't advertise them on our website, right? And so that was kind of the first scenario we thought about, right? And so, yeah, does that ring a bell for you? Does that mean anything? Can you think of any other scenarios that might come up?
Well, I think this helps us to think of the different viewpoints. So what does this look like from the training provider's point of view? How does that affect them?
So pulling in their persona to think about it as well. So if I was a training provider, I don't have any instructors. I'm not advertised anymore. So, but I still have classes that we've taught and I have to get at those students. So an example would be that they could still not activate, but they could still access.
Yeah, so they can still log into the site as a training provider. They can still see their classes. They can see their students, their contact information or whatever they need, but their classes, they can't put classes on our public website.
Exactly. So that kind of leads us that they'll have to contact us to maybe get a new training, to get a new instructor if they want to continue. So there's lots of things that come out of that, right? So,
and I think we want an easy way to deactivate them because we're hoping that they would get at least one new instructor and become a training provider again. So we want to make it easy for them to
right. Back up. So that would mean that our administrator would have to have some kind of flag or something that could be turned on and off. But it would have to be very visible to take it from all of the other flags because it's quite of a big one, right? So we'd have to think about it from an administrator point of view as well. How do we make that simple for them without trying to make it hard? Or,
so we can think through an example. I'm an administrator, so I know that company X is no longer going to be a training provider. They don't have an instructor anymore, so I can log in as an administrator and very easily find this flag, check it, and now that training provider can still log in, still see their stuff, but it will take it off of our public page.
Right, that's true. Yeah, will there be anything from the student's perspective? Will they need to think about that at all?
Well, the students should still have access, right, to their records.
Students can always log into their own records and change them.
But we want to make sure that's true. That's probably want to take a test case out of that or do our exploratory testing. Make sure we cover that.
But it makes me realize as well that when we're talking about the instructors, right? So this instructor leaves that particular training provider. So that instructor's in limbo. A business rule we've had is that instructors must work with a training provider. They can't be on their own. So this instructor will be in limbo. So maybe a new business rule is that they can be temporarily inactive, the instructor, until they associate themselves with a different training provider.
So we don't delete them or anything?
No, we won't delete them, but we will also, I'm not sure if we have to do anything with them, or maybe we make them inactive,
Well, yeah,
That's,
will deactivating the training provider automatically deactivate that former instructor? They're not an instructor anymore, so it's
well, they're still an instructor. They
yeah.
just have no place
Oh,
to
they just don't
be.
work for that training provider.
And
Yeah.
I don't think that, and then this is a whole nother story now.
I was just going to say that might be something to split up into two stories, unless
Yeah.
you want, because you don't want that one flag to control both the training providers.
No, and that instructor might actually work for more than one training provider.
Oh, that's true too.
For example, me, I
Yeah.
actually have my company. I'm an instructor, yay. So my company Dragonfire is my main in training provider, but I have also done courses for, say, Trending. So
Right.
we don't want to deactivate them, but that is a different story. So
Right.
let's make some notes and put that
Yeah.
in.
A story to make sure that the instructors retain their appropriate
Right.
permissions and functionality.
Yeah. And this is where business rules is a good divider for stories to get them smaller.
Yeah, I just love how talking through the business rules can help you understand. It's like, wow, we sure have a lot of business rules. Maybe this is too big of a story.
Yeah, and I think that makes a big difference. It really does. But you can see how even something this simple can actually turn out to be fairly complex, right?
Yeah.
And when we did this story, when we showed it to our product owner at the end, he was the one that came up and said, "Hey, I think you should look at that flag in a different way." And just by showing somebody something different, it makes a big difference, right?
So, and this is the kind of thing, when it seems so simple, this is the kind of thing where so many teams I've worked on got in trouble because we're like, oh yeah, flag the deactivated training provider, fine. Yeah, well, write that story, we're good.
Exactly.
We're estimating it as 1 point. And then when they start working on it, they realize they have all kinds of questions that have not been discussed, and they don't know what to do now. They got to go back to the product owner.
Yes.
And then maybe they're going to write a new story, but that's slowing them down. Or maybe they think they know what they're doing. They don't even talk to the product owner. They deliver the story, and the product owner goes, oh, wait a minute. I have to reject this story now because it's not what I wanted.
So example mapping is a wonderful way to get that out, and it doesn't take long.
Yeah, and I mean, with my team that first tried this, we probably cut our cycle time in half and our rejection rate in half. It was pretty dramatic. Just with this one practice.
Yep. So we encourage everybody, right? In our, I think, maybe we don't have a resource slide, but look up Matt Wynn's stuff.
Right.
Because he really has some stuff. You can Google example mapping, Matt Wynn. There's lots written on it. So we encourage. I think even in their new books, in the books.
Oh, the discovery books, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the discovery.
By Sebros and Gaspar, right,
yeah,
Maggie?
Gaspar and Nagy, they walk you through how to do this.
They do. So enjoy. Anyhow, that's it. Time for today. So I'll just share our usual kind of contact information so that you can get a hold of us if you like. We hope you enjoyed this talk on example mapping today. Like Lisa said at the very beginning, it's one of our favorite practices. Take a look at our website and see if you notice anything. Let us know. So email us, check us out, and we hope you enjoyed our chats. Oh, I know one other thing I wanted to say, Lisa, was our blog post this month, which is on agiletestingfellowship.com, is about dependency mapping, which is another one of those practices which, exposes risks and helps to mitigate them. But part of that, understanding and planning sessions, early testing.
There are lots of different techniques. And so, see which ones really help your team. There might be more than one you want to practice. So
absolutely. So have a good day, and we'll see you next month.